To imagine falling in love with someone you were hired to take away from another woman. Sarah Winters stood at the altar of St. Patrick's Cathedral, holding fabric samples that cost more than her annual rent, watching a man she barely knew choose between ivory and champagne for napkins he'd never notice. And somewhere between the second tasting menu and the orchid arrangements flown in from Singapore, she realized she'd made the most catastrophic mistake of her professional life. She'd fallen in love with the groom. Stay with me until the end. This story will break your heart in ways you didn't know were possible. And if you've ever loved someone you couldn't have, hit like and subscribe, because this one will stay with you long after it's over. It started 6 months earlier, on a Tuesday that tasted like rain and ambition. Sarah had been freelancing as a wedding planner for 3 years. Small ceremonies, intimate receptions, the kind where brides cried over handwritten vows and grooms forgot their lines. She loved it. The chaos, the emotion, the impossible logistics of making two families pretend to like each other for 6 hours. But she was drowning. Her studio apartment in Queens had a leak she couldn't afford to fix. Her car made a sound that mechanics described as concerning. And her mother's medical bills were stacked on her kitchen counter like a house of cards waiting to collapse. When the email came, she almost deleted it. Subject: wedding planning opportunity. Immediate response required. Ms. Winters, your portfolio was recommended by a mutual colleague. We require a lead planner for a high-profile wedding in Manhattan. Timeline: 6 months. Compensation: $150,000 plus expenses. Discretion is mandatory. If interested, please respond within 24 hours. M. Harrington, executive assistant to Mr. James Callahan. Sarah read it 3 times, checked the sender's domain, Callahan Industries. Real, legitimate, terrifyingly legitimate. James Callahan. She'd heard the name before. Everyone had. 34 years old, CEO of one of the fastest-growing tech empires in North America, a man whose face appeared on magazine covers with headlines like "The Architect of Tomorrow" and "Billionaire with a Conscience." And he was getting married. She hit reply before she could overthink it. The first meeting was held in a glass tower in Midtown that seemed to scrape the sky with arrogance. Sarah wore her only good blazer, navy, slightly worn at the elbows, and carried a leather portfolio she'd bought at a thrift store. The elevator ride to the 48th floor felt like ascending into another atmosphere, one where oxygen cost extra and mistakes were unforgivable. The assistant, Miranda Harrington, was a woman in her 50s with silver hair and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Mr. Callahan will see you now." The office was enormous. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Central Park, the city sprawling beneath like a living, breathing organism. The furniture was minimal, expensive, the kind that whispered power without saying a word. And then there was him. James Callahan stood by the window, hands in his pockets, staring out at the skyline like he owned it. He probably did. Tall, lean, dark hair slightly tousled, wearing a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, casual in a way that only the very rich could afford. He turned, their eyes met. Sarah felt something shift in her chest, small, quiet, dangerous. "Ms. Winters." His voice was low, controlled, the kind of voice that made you lean in to hear better. "Thank you for coming." "Of course." She stepped forward, extending her hand. "It's an honor." His handshake was firm, brief, professional, but his eyes lingered a second too long. "Please sit." She did, crossing her legs, pulling out her tablet. "Congratulations on your engagement. When did you propose?" 3 months ago. He sat across from her, leaning back, studying her. Her name is Victoria Ashford. Our families have known each other for years. The wedding is important. Sarah nodded, typing notes. Important how? Politically, financially, publicly. He paused. It's a merger as much as a marriage. The words landed between them like stones. She looked up. And emotionally. His jaw tightened, just barely. That's not relevant to your job. Respectfully, Mr. Callahan, it's the most relevant part. She set down her tablet. I don't plan weddings. I plan love stories. If you want something beautiful, something people will remember, I need to know what this marriage means to you. Silence. He stared at her, something flickering behind his eyes, surprise maybe, or irritation. Then he laughed. It was quiet, almost bitter. You're direct. I don't have time to waste. Neither do you. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Victoria and I are compatible. We understand each other. We want the same things, which are stability, legacy, a partnership that makes sense. Sarah tilted her head. Do you love her? The question hung in the air like smoke. James didn't answer immediately. He looked away toward the window, his profile sharp against the light. I respect her, he said finally. That's more important than love. Sarah felt something crack inside her chest, something small and sad. She'd planned 17 weddings in 3 years. Not one of them had started with the word respect. All right, she said softly. Then let's make it unforgettable. The weeks that followed were a blur of meetings, tastings, venue tours, and late-night emails. Victoria Ashford was everything Sarah expected, polished, poised, beautiful in the way that came from good genes and better stylists. Blonde hair always perfect, heels always sharp, smile always calculated. She spoke about the wedding the way CEOs spoke about quarterly earnings, efficient, detached, strategic. I want classic, Victoria said during their second meeting, flipping through a catalogue without looking up. Timeless, nothing too emotional. Sarah made notes. What about the vows? We'll use traditional ones. James doesn't like public displays of emotion. And you? Victoria glanced up, her expression cool. I agree with him. Sarah forced a smile. Of course. But it was James who kept pulling her back into orbit. He attended every meeting, unusual for a groom, especially one running a multinational corporation. He asked questions, offered opinions, challenged her ideas with a sharpness that felt less like criticism and more like engagement. Why orchids? He asked during a floral consultation. Because they're elegant, Sarah replied, and they last. They're also expensive and fragile. So is marriage. His eyes snapped to hers. She held his gaze. Victoria, scrolling through her phone, didn't notice. It happened slowly, the way dangerous things always do. A glance that lasted too long during a cake tasting, his hand brushing hers when they both reached for the same fabric swatch. The way he texted her at midnight with questions that could have waited until morning. James, do you think people actually remember their wedding day, or just the photos? Sarah, depends on whether they were paying attention. James, and if they weren't, Sarah, then they married the wrong person. He didn't reply for 10 minutes. Then, good night, Sarah. She stared at her phone, heart pounding, knowing she was crossing a line she couldn't uncross, knowing she didn't want to stop. 8 weeks before the wedding, everything changed. They were alone in the penthouse venue, finalizing seating arrangements. Victoria had cancelled last minute, something about a charity gala. The sun was setting over the Hudson, painting the room in gold and shadow. Sarah. She looked up from her tablet. James stood by the window, hands in his pockets, shoulders tense. "I need to ask you something." Her pulse quickened. "Okay. Do you believe in love?" The question struck her like lightning. She set down her tablet slowly. "Yes." "Why?" "Because I've seen it." She stood, walking toward him. "Not often, but when it's real, it's unmistakable." He turned to face her fully. "And when it's not? Then it's just logistics." His eyes searched hers, raw and unguarded. "Sarah, don't." Her voice cracked. "Please don't. I can't stop thinking about you." The words shattered the air between them. She stepped back, shaking her head. "You're getting married in 8 weeks." "I know." "To someone else." "I know." "Then why are you telling me this?" He closed the distance between them, his voice low, desperate. "Because I need to know if I'm losing my mind. Because every time you walk into a room, I forget why I'm there. Because—" "Stop." She pressed her palms to her temples. "This isn't... We can't... I know." His voice broke. "God, I know." They stood there, inches apart, the city glittering below them like 1,000 silent witnesses. Sarah felt tears burning behind her eyes. "I have to go," she whispered. She grabbed her bag and walked toward the door. "Sarah." She stopped, but didn't turn around. "If things were different..." "They're not." She left before he could see her cry. Does she walk away from the job? Or does she stay and watch the man she loves marry someone else? Sarah didn't sleep that night. She sat on her fire escape in Queens, wrapped in a blanket that smelled like detergent and regret, watching the city breathe below her. Neon signs flickered. Sirens wailed in the distance. Somewhere someone was laughing. Her phone buzzed. "James, I'm sorry." She stared at the message, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. Delete the conversation. Block the number. Walk away. But her mother's medical bills were still on the counter. The leak in her ceiling was still dripping into a bucket. And she'd signed a contract, ironclad, unbreakable, with penalties that would bury her financially for years. She typed back, "Let's keep this professional." His response came immediately. Agreed. Neither of them meant it. The next morning, Sarah arrived at the bridal boutique on Fifth Avenue, where Victoria was scheduled for her final dress fitting. The Inn was all white marble and gold accents, the kind of place where champagne was served in crystal and judgment hung in the air like expensive perfume. Victoria stood on a platform in front of 3 mirrors, draped in silk and lace that probably cost more than Sarah's car. The dress was stunning, backless, elegant, designed to photograph like a dream. But Victoria's face was expressionless. "What do you think?" the seamstress asked, adjusting the train. "It's fine," Victoria said flatly. "Fine." Sarah felt something twist in her stomach. "Victoria," she said carefully, stepping forward, "this is your wedding dress. It should be more than fine." Victoria's eyes met hers in the mirror, cold, assessing. "I don't do sentimentality, Sarah. That's why I hired you, to handle the emotion so I don't have to." The words stung more than they should have. "Noted," Sarah replied softly. Victoria turned, the dress whispering around her ankles. "James speaks highly of you." Sarah's heart stopped. "I'm glad he's satisfied with my work. He says you're insightful." Victoria tilted her head. That you ask the right questions. I try to understand my clients. Do you? Victoria stepped down from the platform, moving closer. Because I'm curious what questions you've been asking my fiancé during all those late-night meetings. The air went sharp. Sarah kept her voice steady. We've been finalizing details. The timeline is tight. Of course, Victoria smiled, but it didn't touch her eyes. Just remember, Sarah, James and I have known each other since we were children. Our families built empires together. You're planning a wedding, I'm planning a future. Message received. Victoria turned back to the mirror. I'll take the dress. Have it delivered next week. Sarah nodded, making notes she didn't need, her hands trembling. She told herself she wouldn't see him alone again. She lasted 4 days. James requested a meeting at his penthouse, not the office, not a public venue, just the two of them, reviewing the final timeline. Red flag, warning sign, boundary violation. She went anyway. The penthouse was minimalist and cold, all steel and glass, with a view that made the world feel small. James answered the door in jeans and a grey sweater, barefoot, hair slightly damp like he'd just showered. Human, vulnerable, dangerous. Come in, he said quietly. She stepped inside, clutching her portfolio like a shield. We should make this quick. I know. But neither of them moved toward the dining table where her notes were spread out. They stood in the entryway. The door closed behind them, the silence thick with everything they weren't saying. Victoria knows, Sarah said finally. James's jaw tightened. Knows what? That something's different. She set down her bag. She cornered me at the dress fitting. She's not stupid, James. I haven't told her anything. You don't have to. It's in the way you look at me. He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. Then I'll stop looking. Will you? His eyes found hers, raw and exhausted. I don't know. Sarah felt her resolve cracking. Why did you ask me here? Because I'm getting married in 6 weeks, and I can't breathe. His voice broke. Because I wake up thinking about you and fall asleep thinking about you, and I don't know how to make it stop. Then call off the wedding. The words escaped before she could stop them. James stared at her, stunned. What? If you don't love her, if you're this miserable, call it off. I can't. Why not? Because it's not that simple. He stepped closer, his voice rising. There are contracts, investments, families, hundreds of employees whose livelihoods depend on this merger. I can't just... So you'll marry her anyway? Sarah's voice shook. You'll stand at that altar and pretend for the rest of your life? People do it every day. That doesn't make it right. And falling for my wedding planner is... He laughed bitterly. Tell me, Sarah, what's the right move here? Walk away from everything I've built? Destroy 2 families? For what? A feeling. For love. The word hung between them like a prayer. James closed his eyes. Love isn't enough. Then what is? He didn't answer. Sarah felt tears burning behind her eyes. I can't do this, James. I can't keep planning a wedding that breaks my heart every time I think about it. Then quit. I can't afford to. You know that. I'll pay the penalty clause. I'll cover everything. And then what? She stepped closer, her voice trembling. You marry her anyway, and I go back to my life knowing I walked away from the only man I've ever... She stopped. The confession hung in the air, unfinished but undeniable. James stared at her, his breathing uneven. Say it. No. Sarah, no. She grabbed her bag, her hands shaking. "This was a mistake. I shouldn't have come." She turned toward the door. His hand caught her wrist, gentle, desperate. "Please don't go." She froze, her back to him, feeling the warmth of his touch like fire. "I can't do this," she whispered. "I know." His thumb brushed the inside of her wrist, a touch so soft it felt like a goodbye. "But just stay. 5 more minutes, please." Sarah closed her eyes. Every logical part of her brain screamed to leave, but her heart, stupid, reckless, irreparably broken, made her turn around. James's face was inches from hers, his eyes dark and desperate. "This is wrong," she breathed. "I know. We can't. I know." But he leaned in anyway, his forehead resting against hers, their breaths mingling. Neither of them moved, neither of them pulled away. They stood there, suspended in a moment that felt stolen from another life, one where timing wasn't cruel and love was enough. 6 weeks, James whispered, "and then I'll never see you again." Sarah's eyes burned. "Is that supposed to make this easier?" "No." His voice cracked. "Nothing about this is easy." She pulled back, just enough to see his face. "I should hate you." "You should." "But I don't." His hand came up, cupping her face with a tenderness that shattered her. "I'm sorry." "For what?" "For being too late." His thumb traced her cheekbone. "For meeting you now, like this. For wanting something I have no right to want." Sarah's tears finally spilled over. "Stop." "I can't." He kissed her forehead, soft, reverent, heartbreaking. "God help me, I can't." She stepped back, forcing distance between them, her whole body trembling. "I'll finish the job," she said, her voice barely steady. "Because I gave my word, but after the wedding we never speak again, understood?" James nodded, his eyes red. "Understood." She walked to the door, her vision blurred. "Sarah." She paused, her hand on the doorknob. "In another life," he said quietly, "I would have fought for you." She didn't turn around. Couldn't. "In another life," she whispered, "I would have let you." Then she left, closing the door on the only man she'd ever loved. But fate wasn't done with them yet. Because 3 weeks later, Victoria made a discovery that would unravel everything. The invitation arrived on a Thursday. Not for the wedding. That was still 3 weeks away, looming like a storm Sarah couldn't outrun. This was different. "You are cordially invited to an intimate engagement celebration." The Ashford Estate Southampton black tie required Victoria's family tradition. A weekend gathering before the wedding, where both families would mingle, toast, pretend to be thrilled about a union built on stock portfolios and social climbing. Sarah wasn't supposed to attend. Wedding planners didn't get invited to private family events. But Miranda called her on Friday morning. "Ms. Winters, there's been a request." The assistant's voice was tight, careful. "Mrs. Ashford would like you present this weekend. To oversee final details, ensure everything aligns with the wedding aesthetic." Sarah's stomach dropped. "That's not typically—" Mr. Callahan agreed it was necessary. Of course he did. "I'll be there," Sarah said quietly. She hung up and stared at her phone, her reflection ghostly in the black screen. 3 weeks of careful distance, of professional emails and group meetings with Victoria always present. 3 weeks of pretending her heart wasn't bleeding out every time she saw his name. And now this. The Ashford estate was obscene, 20 acres of manicured lawns rolling down to the Atlantic, a mansion that looked like it had been airlifted from a European castle, fountains that probably cost more than most people's houses. Sarah arrived Saturday afternoon in her only cocktail dress, simple black, elegant but clearly off the rack. The valet looked at her car like it carried a disease. Inside, the house hummed with wealth. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors. Oil paintings of dead Ashfords judging everyone from gilded frames. Victoria appeared at the top of the grand staircase, descending like royalty in a white silk gown that probably had its own security detail. "Sarah," her smile was sharp, "so glad you could join us. Thank you for including me." "Of course." Victoria's eyes swept over her dress, a flicker of amusement crossing her face. "James is on the terrace. Why don't you go say hello? I'm sure he'll want to review the timeline with you." The words were polite. The subtext was a knife. Sarah found him standing alone by the infinity pool, overlooking the ocean. He wore a navy suit, no tie, the top button undone. The sunset painted him in gold and shadow. He turned when he heard her heels on the stone. Their eyes met. Everything stopped. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi." His voice was rough, like he hadn't used it in hours. She moved closer, keeping a careful distance. "You didn't have to do this." Victoria insisted, said she wanted everything perfect. "And you believed her." His jaw tightened. "No." Silence settled between them, heavy with 3 weeks of unsaid words. "How have you been?" he asked finally. "Professional." A sad smile touched his lips. "That bad?" "Worse." She looked out at the ocean, the waves dark and relentless. "You?" Counting down. "To the wedding. To when this is over." Sarah's throat tightened. "James, don't." He stepped closer, his voice low. "Please. I've been good. I've kept my distance, but if you say my name like that, you'll what?" He looked at her then, really looked, and she saw it. The exhaustion, the longing, the quiet devastation of a man drowning in a life he didn't want. "I'll beg you to run away with me," he whispered. The confession hung in the salt air between them. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. "Don't say things like that." "Why not?" "It's true." "Because it makes it harder." "Harder than what? Marrying someone I don't love? Spending the rest of my life wondering what if?" His hands flexed at his sides. "Every day I wake up and tell myself it's the right thing, the responsible thing, and every night I lie awake knowing I'm a coward. You're not." "I am." His voice cracked. "Because the bravest thing I could do is call it off. And I won't." Before Sarah could respond, voices floated from the terrace above. Victoria's laugh, high, performative. They stepped apart instinctively, the moment shattered. "I should go," Sarah said. "Stay." His hand twitched toward hers, stopped. "Please, just be here, even if we can't." "Mr. Callahan." An older man appeared on the terrace, waving. "We're starting toasts." James exhaled slowly. "Coming." He looked at Sarah one last time, something desperate and final in his eyes. Then he walked away. Dinner was theatrical torture. 40 guests seated at a table that seemed to stretch into infinity, crystal and china gleaming under chandelier light. Sarah was placed near the end, close enough to observe, far enough to remember her place. James sat at the head beside Victoria, who glowed under the attention, her hand resting possessively on his arm. Victoria's father stood, champagne glass raised. "To my daughter," he began, his voice booming with practiced charm, "who has always known exactly what she wanted." And to James, who was wise enough to recognize a perfect partnership when he saw one. Polite laughter, clinking glasses. Sarah watched James's face. He smiled. He nodded. He was utterly empty. Victoria stood next, elegant and composed. "I want to thank everyone for being here. James and I are building something extraordinary together, a union of vision, ambition, and mutual respect." Respect. There was that word again. Sarah's wine glass felt heavy in her hand. "And I want to especially thank Sarah Winters," Victoria continued, her eyes finding Sarah across the table. "Our wedding planner, who has worked tirelessly to create the perfect day. Sarah has such a gift for understanding what people truly want, even when they don't say it out loud." The words landed like bullets wrapped in silk. Sarah forced a smile, raising her glass slightly. James's knuckles were white around his champagne flute. Victoria sat down, leaning close to whisper something in his ear. He nodded, but his eyes found Sarah's across the table. "Help me," they said. She looked away. At midnight, Sarah stood on a balcony off her guest room, unable to sleep. The ocean was a black mirror under the moon. Music and laughter still drifted from downstairs, guests who would party until dawn, celebrating a love story they'd invented. A knock. Her heart stopped. She opened the door. James stood there, still in his suit, looking wrecked. "Can I come in?" Every alarm in her brain screamed no. She stepped aside. He walked past her, running his hands through his hair, pacing like a caged animal. "You can't be here," Sarah said quietly, closing the door. "I know." "If someone sees, I don't care." He turned to face her, his eyes wild. "I can't do this, Sarah. I can't sit through another dinner, another toast, another speech about partnership and vision, when all I want—" "Stop." "No." He crossed to her, close enough that she could feel the heat of him. "I'm done pretending. I love you." The words crashed through her like a wave. "James." "I love you," he repeated, his voice breaking. "I've loved you since the first meeting when you asked me if I loved Victoria and I couldn't answer. I've loved you through every menu tasting and seating chart and flower arrangement. I love the way you challenge me, the way you see through every wall I've built. I love—" "Stop!" Sarah pressed her hands to his chest, tears streaming. "You can't say these things to me. Why not? Because in 3 weeks you're marrying someone else, because this—" She gestured between them. "Whatever this is, it doesn't get to exist. It's not fair to me. It's not fair to Victoria. It's not—" "I'll call it off." Silence. Sarah stared at him, her heart hammering. "What?" "I'll call off the wedding." His hands came up to frame her face, thumbs brushing away her tears. "Tell me you love me too, and I'll end it. Tonight. Right now." "You're not thinking clearly, I've never been more clear." His forehead touched hers. "I don't care about the money or the merger or what my family thinks. I care about you. Only you." Sarah closed her eyes, every cell in her body screaming yes, but her mind, practical, protective, saw further. "And then what?" she whispered. "You blow up your life, destroy your reputation, hurt Victoria and both families. For what? For me? Some wedding planner you've known for 6 months. For love. Love that everyone will say is just an affair. That home wrecked a wedding." Her voice shook. "They'll hate me, James. Your family, your friends, the press. I'll be the woman who seduced the groom, who ruined everything. And eventually, you'll resent me for it. I could never... You will. She pulled back, her chest aching. When the scandal dies down and reality sets in, when you see what you gave up, you'll wake up one day and wonder if I was worth it. Sarah, I can't be the reason your life falls apart. Tears blurred her vision. I won't survive that. James stared at her, devastation written across every line of his face. So that's it. His voice was raw. We just pretend this never happened? We don't have a choice. There's always a choice. Not one we can live with. He stepped back, his hands falling to his sides. Tell me you don't love me. James, say it. Look me in the eye and tell me you don't love me, and I'll walk out that door. I'll marry Victoria. I'll never bother you again. Sarah's throat closed. She opened her mouth. Nothing came, because she couldn't lie. Not about this. That's what I thought, he whispered. He moved to the door, pausing with his hand on the handle. I'll spend the rest of my life wondering what we could have been, he said quietly. I hope you can live with that, because I'm not sure I can. Then he left. Sarah slid down the door to the floor, wrapping her arms around her knees, finally letting herself break. The next morning, Victoria was waiting, and she knew everything. Sarah woke to pounding on her door. Dawn light filtered through the curtains, grey and unforgiving. Her eyes were swollen, her throat raw from crying. The pounding continued. She stumbled to the door, still in yesterday's dress, and opened it. Victoria stood there, immaculate in white linen, her face a mask of controlled fury. We need to talk. Not a request. She pushed past Sarah into the room, closing the door behind her with a click that sounded like a lock. Sarah's heart hammered. Victoria, Save it. Victoria's voice was ice. I'm going to ask you one question, and I want the truth. Did my fiancé come to your room last night? The air left Sarah's lungs. Answer me. Sarah's mind raced. Lie. Deny. Protect him. But Victoria's eyes already knew. Yes, Sarah whispered. Victoria laughed, sharp, brittle. Of course he did. She walked to the window, arms crossed. How long? Nothing happened. How long have you been in love with him? The question was a knife between the ribs. Sarah couldn't speak. Victoria turned, her composure cracking just enough to show the rage beneath. You think I'm stupid? You think I haven't noticed the way he looks at you? The late meetings, the constant texts, the way he says your name like it's a prayer? Her voice rose. I've known for weeks. Then why didn't you... Fire you? Call it off. Victoria stepped closer. Because I'm not some naive girl who believes in fairy tales, Sarah. I know what this marriage is. A merger, a strategy. But it's my strategy, and I won't let some poor little wedding planner with stars in her eyes destroy it. The words hit like slaps. I never meant... I don't care what you meant. Victoria's eyes were cold. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to finish planning this wedding. You're going to smile and coordinate and make it perfect. And then you're going to disappear. No goodbye, no dramatic exit. Just gone. And if I don't, Victoria smiled, then I'll make sure you never work in this city again. I'll sue you for breach of contract, professional misconduct, intentional interference. I'll destroy your reputation so thoroughly that you won't be able to plan a child's birthday party. Sarah felt the walls closing in. You can't. I absolutely can. Victoria moved to the door, pausing. And Sarah, if you think James is going to save you, you're more delusional than I thought. He's a Callahan. When it comes down to it, he'll choose the empire. He always does. She left, the door closing with surgical precision. Sarah stood frozen, her world imploding. She didn't see James the rest of the weekend. He'd left early that morning, Miranda explained with practiced neutrality. A business emergency in the city. He sent his apologies. Sarah knew better. He was running. She packed her things and drove back to Queens in silence, the highway stretching endlessly, her thoughts spiraling. Victoria was right. James wouldn't choose her. Couldn't. And even if he did, what then? A lifetime of being the woman who ruined his life, who destroyed his family's legacy, who turned him into tabloid fodder. She loved him too much for that. The final 3 weeks were agony. Sarah threw herself into work, finalizing seating charts, confirming vendors, running through the timeline until it was flawless. She communicated through emails and Miranda, avoiding any situation where she might be alone with James. He tried. Texts that went unanswered, calls she declined. One voicemail she listened to once and immediately deleted. "Sarah, please, we need to talk. I can't do this without..." She couldn't listen to the rest. 2 weeks before the wedding, her mother called. "How's the big event coming?" Her voice was warm, tired. The chemo had been brutal this round. "Almost done," Sarah said, staring at her apartment ceiling, phone pressed to her ear. "You sound sad, baby." "Just stressed." Liar. Her mother knew her too well. "What happened?" Sarah closed her eyes. "I fell in love with someone I can't have." Silence on the line. Then, "Does he love you back?" "Yes." "Then why can't you have him?" "Because he's engaged to someone else. Because I'm nobody." "Because real life isn't a fairy tale, Mom." Her mother was quiet for a long moment. "Sarah, listen to me. I've been sick for 2 years. Every day I wake up grateful for another sunrise, another cup of coffee, another conversation with my daughter. You know what I've learned?" "What?" "That we don't get unlimited chances at love. Life is too short and too cruel to walk away from something real just because it's complicated." Tears slid down Sarah's cheeks. "But what if choosing him destroys everything? What if not choosing him destroys you?" 1 week before the wedding, James showed up at her apartment. It was late, almost midnight. Sarah was in pajamas reviewing final vendor contracts when the knock came. She opened the door. He looked devastated. Unshaven, exhausted, wearing jeans and a wrinkled shirt like he'd been driving for hours. "I can't marry her," he said without preamble. Sarah's heart stopped. "James, I've tried. God knows I've tried." He stepped forward, desperate. "But I can't stand at that altar and promise forever to someone when every part of me belongs to you. Don't do this. I'm calling it off." His voice cracked. "Tomorrow. I'm telling Victoria tomorrow." "No." Sarah grabbed his arm. "You can't." "Why not?" "Because she'll destroy me." The words burst out. "She came to me, James. She threatened to ruin my career, sue me, make sure I never work again. And she's right. She has the power, the money, the connections. I can't fight her." James stared at her, realization dawning. "She threatened you?" "She told me what I already knew, that you'll choose the empire, the legacy, everything you've built." Sarah's voice broke. "And she's right, isn't she? When it really comes down to it?" "No." He cupped her face, fierce. "I choose you. I'll deal with Victoria, with the lawsuits, with all of it. We'll leave New York if we have to. Start over somewhere, and hate me eventually." Tears streamed down her face. When the reality sets in, when you miss your old life, when everyone you know turns their back on you, you'll resent me, James, and I can't watch you stop loving me. That will never happen. You don't know that. I do. His forehead pressed against hers. Sarah, I have spent my entire life doing what's expected, building what my father wanted, becoming who everyone needed me to be. And I'm miserable. I've been miserable for years until you. James, you make me feel alive, real, like I'm not just a name or a corporation or a stock price. With you, I'm just me. His voice shattered. Please don't ask me to give that up. Sarah sobbed against his chest, his arms wrapping around her. They stood in her doorway, holding each other like drowning people, the city humming indifferently around them. I love you, she whispered into his shirt. So much it terrifies me. Then run away with me. He pulled back to look at her. Right now, tonight, we get in the car and we drive and we never look back. For one breathless moment, Sarah imagined it. The open road, a new city, a little apartment where they were just Sarah and James, not scandal and consequence. It was beautiful. It was impossible. What about your employees? She asked quietly. The merger falls through. You said hundreds of jobs are at stake. Can you live with that? His jaw tightened. What about Victoria's family? Your family, the investors, the board members, everyone who trusted you? Her voice broke. You're not just a man, James. You're a CEO, a son, a promise. You can't just walk away. Watch me. I can't let you. She stepped back, breaking his hold. Because I love you enough to let you go. Don't. His voice was raw. Please, Sarah, don't. Go marry Victoria. Tears blurred her vision. Build your empire. Honor your commitments. Be the man everyone needs you to be. I need to be yours. You can't be both. They stood there, the space between them infinite. James's face crumpled. So this is it? We just end. We never really began. She forced the words out. It was always impossible. It didn't feel impossible. No. Her voice broke. It felt like everything. He reached for her one last time, his hand trembling against her cheek. In another life. Don't. She closed her eyes. Please don't say it again. His thumb brushed away her tears. Then he dropped his hand and walked away, his footsteps echoing down the hallway like a funeral march. Sarah closed the door and slid to the floor, wrapping her arms around her knees. This time, she didn't cry. There were no tears left. The wedding was in 7 days, and Sarah had to watch the man she loved promise forever to someone else. But sometimes, the universe has other plans, and sometimes the truth has a way of surfacing when you least expect it. The rehearsal dinner was held at a restaurant in Tribeca, exposed brick Edison bulbs, the kind of calculated rustic that cost a fortune to achieve. Sarah stood in the corner with her clipboard, invisible among the laughter and champagne, watching James move through the room like a ghost in an expensive suit. He hadn't looked at her once, not when he arrived with Victoria on his arm, not during the speeches, not even when they reviewed the ceremony timeline, standing 3 feet apart, speaking in professional monotones that fooled no one paying attention. But no one was paying attention. They were all too busy celebrating. Sarah was about to leave. Her job here done, her heart sufficiently destroyed. When Victoria's mother approached, Eleanor Ashford was 70, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, draped in pearls that probably had their own insurance policy. "Ms. Winters." Her voice was cordial, cool. "A moment," Sarah's stomach tightened. "Of course." They moved to a quieter corner away from the noise. Eleanor studied her with unsettling intensity. "You've done beautiful work. The wedding will be flawless. Thank you. Tell me something." Eleanor tilted her head. "Do you love him?" The question struck like lightning. Sarah's throat closed. "I don't. That's not. I'm 73 years old, dear. I've watched people lie to themselves and each other for decades. I know what love looks like." Eleanor's expression softened. "And I know what its absence looks like too." Sarah couldn't speak. "My daughter doesn't love James," Eleanor continued quietly. "She loves what he represents. The power, the status, the perfect photograph for her perfectly curated life. I've known it since she was 16, calculating which boys would look best on her college applications. Mrs. Ashford." "I raised her that way." Eleanor's voice carried decades of regret. "I taught her that love was a luxury, that security mattered more than happiness. I turned my daughter into someone who treats marriage like a business acquisition." She paused. "And now I'm watching her do the same thing to a good man." Tears pricked Sarah's eyes. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because someone should have stopped me 40 years ago when I married Victoria's father for his name instead of marrying the man I actually loved." Eleanor's eyes glistened. "I've spent 4 decades wondering what if. Don't let James spend his life the same way." "I can't," Victoria threatened. "Victoria is my daughter and I love her. But she's wrong." Eleanor's hand touched Sarah's arm. "Fear makes us cruel. I taught her that too, but it's not too late to teach her something else." Before Sarah could respond, a commotion erupted across the room. Victoria's voice, sharp and rising. "What do you mean you can't find it?" Her assistant, pale and stammering. "I've looked everywhere, Miss Ashford. The envelope isn't in your bag or the car or—" "What envelope?" James appeared concerned. Victoria's face was flushed. "Nothing. Just some documents." "It's fine." But her eyes said otherwise. Panicked, desperate. Eleanor's expression shifted. Recognition, then something darker. "Victoria," she said quietly. "What documents?" "Mother, not now." "What documents?" The room had gone quiet, everyone watching. Victoria's jaw tightened. "The prenuptial agreement. I was supposed to have James sign it tonight, but there's no prenup," James interrupted, confused. "We discussed this. You didn't want one." Silence. Victoria's face went white. "Victoria?" James's voice dropped. "What prenup?" Eleanor moved swiftly, crossing to her daughter. "Tell him. Now." "Mother." "Tell him, or I will." Victoria looked cornered, desperate. Then something in her hardened. "Fine." She turned to James, chin raised. "There was a second agreement. A private one between our families. If the marriage ended within 5 years, you'd retain the merged assets, but my family would receive quarterly payouts totaling 40% of—" "You were betting on divorce." James's voice was barely above a whisper. "I was protecting my interests." Victoria's composure cracked. "This was always a business arrangement, James. You knew that." "I thought we were at least trying to build something real." "Real?" She laughed bitterly. "You've been in love with her. she pointed at Sarah. "Since the first meeting. Don't talk to me about real." The room erupted, gasps, murmurs, phones discreetly recording. James stood frozen, his face ashen. Sarah wanted to disappear, to melt into the floor, but Eleanor's hand on her arm kept her grounded. "I tried," Victoria continued, her voice rising. "I pretended not to notice. I convinced myself it didn't matter because the merger mattered more. But you know what? I'm tired. Tired of pretending. Tired of playing the perfect fiancé to a man who wishes I was someone else." "Victoria," James started. "No." She held up a hand. "I'm done. You want to throw away everything we built? Fine. But don't pretend this is about honor or doing the right thing. You're just a coward who fell for the help." The words landed like acid. Sarah flinched. James's expression went dark. "Don't talk about her like that." "Why not? It's the truth. She's nobody, James. No family, no money, no... She's everything." His voice cut through the room like glass. "Everything you're not. She's kind. She's honest. She sees me, not my bank account or my last name. She made me remember what it feels like to be human." Victoria stared at him, stunned. "I should have called this off weeks ago," James continued, his voice steady now. "I was afraid. Afraid of disappointing people. Afraid of the consequences. But the only thing I'm afraid of now is spending one more day lying to you, to myself, to her." He turned to Sarah. Their eyes met across the room. "I love you," he said simply. "I'm sorry it took me this long to say it in front of everyone." Sarah couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Victoria laughed, high, broken. "You're making a mistake." "No." James shook his head. "The mistake was saying yes to you in the first place. I'm sorry, Victoria. You deserve someone who loves you the way you want to be loved. But that person isn't me." He crossed the room, stopped in front of Sarah. "I know I'm asking you to jump off a cliff with me," he said quietly. "I know there'll be consequences and scandal and people who'll judge us. But I don't care anymore. I just need to know, will you jump with me?" Sarah looked at him. This man who'd been a stranger 6 months ago, who'd somehow become her entire world. She thought about her mother's words, about Eleanor's regrets, about spending the rest of her life wondering what if. "Yes," she whispered. James exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for weeks. He took her hand. The room exploded. Shocked voices, Victoria screaming, her father's furious threats, guests filming everything. But Sarah only heard James. "Let's go," he said. They walked out together, hand in hand, into the New York night that suddenly felt full of possibility instead of consequence. Behind them, the rehearsal dinner dissolved into chaos. Ahead, everything was uncertain, but for the first time in months, Sarah could breathe. They drove. No destination, just a way. Out of Manhattan, across bridges, through tunnels, until the city lights faded to darkness and highway, and the quiet hum of tires on asphalt. James pulled over at a rest stop somewhere in New Jersey, killed the engine. They sat in silence, the weight of what they'd done settling around them. "Holy shit," James said finally. Sarah laughed, unexpected, a little hysterical. "Holy shit. I just blew up my life." "We both did." He turned to look at her, his face illuminated by the flickering gas station sign. "Any regrets?" She considered. "Ask me in the morning." "Fair." He reached for her hand, threading their fingers together. "My father's going to disown me." The board will probably force me out. Victoria's family will sue. This is going to be a nightmare. I know. You'll be dragged through the press. They'll say terrible things about you. I know. We might lose everything. Sarah squeezed his hand. Not everything. He pulled her across the console, kissing her like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, he pressed his forehead to hers. "Where do we go from here?" he whispered. "I have no idea." "Good." He smiled, the first real smile she'd seen in weeks. "Let's figure it out together." They stayed there until dawn, talking about everything and nothing, making plans that would probably fall apart, dreaming about a life that had no blueprint. As the sun rose over the highway, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose, Sarah realized something. She wasn't afraid anymore, but the world they'd left behind wasn't finished with them yet. And some storms you can't outrun, you can only face them together. The aftermath came swift and merciless. By morning, they were everywhere. Billionaire CEO dumps heiress for wedding planner. Callahan empire in crisis as merger collapses. The woman who broke the wedding of the year. Sarah's phone exploded with calls, reporters, former clients, people she hadn't spoken to in years, suddenly desperate for her side of the story. She turned it off. They holed up in a small hotel in Connecticut. Nothing fancy, just clean sheets and coffee from a machine in the lobby. James paid cash. They used fake names. For 3 days they existed in a bubble where the outside world couldn't touch them. On the 4th day, reality found them anyway. James's phone rang, one of the few numbers he hadn't blocked. His mother. He stared at the screen, his jaw tight. "You should answer," Sarah said quietly. "She'll say I've destroyed the family." "Maybe, but she's still your mother," he answered. "Put it on speaker." "James William Callahan." His mother's voice was ice. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "Hi, Mom." "Don't hi, Mom me. Your father is in emergency board meetings. Victoria's family is threatening legal action. The stock has dropped 12%. 12%, James." Sarah watched him close his eyes, the weight settling on his shoulders. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "Sorry?" Catherine Callahan's voice rose. "You humiliated the Ashford family at a public event. You walked out on a merger that took 2 years to negotiate. You..." She stopped, took a breath. "Who is she?" James looked at Sarah. "Someone I should have met 10 years ago." Silence on the line. Then, softer. "Do you love her?" "Yes." "More than the company?" "Yes." Another pause. "Your father wants to remove you as CEO." James's face went pale, but he didn't flinch. "I understand. I told him no." Both Sarah and James stared at the phone. "What?" James breathed. "I told him no," Catherine repeated. "You're my son before you're a CEO." "And I watched you be miserable for 3 years with Victoria. I convinced myself it was just cold feet, just nerves. But at that rehearsal dinner, when you looked at that girl..." Her voice cracked. "That's how your father used to look at me, before the company consumed everything." James's eyes glistened. "Mom, don't misunderstand me. I'm furious. You handled this terribly. The optics are a disaster, but..." She exhaled. "You're 34 years old, and that's the first time I've seen you fight for something that wasn't the company. So fight, James, but fight smart." "What do you mean?" "Come home, face the board, take responsibility, show them you're not running away. You're making a choice, and bring her. I want to meet the woman worth burning down an empire for." The call ended. James sat frozen, staring at the phone. Sarah took his hand. "Your mother is terrifying." "She really is." He laughed, shaky. "But she's right, we can't hide forever. Are you sure you want to go back? They're going to destroy you in that boardroom." "Let them try." He squeezed her hand. "Besides, I didn't build that company alone. I have allies, people who believe in the work we do, not just the stock price." His voice strengthened. "And maybe it's time to remind everyone what Callahan Industries was supposed to be about before it became a dynasty." Sarah saw it then, the man she'd fallen in love with. Not the exhausted, trapped version who'd walked into her life 6 months ago, but the real James, passionate, determined, free. "Okay," she said, "let's go face the fire." The board meeting was held in a glass conference room on the 48th floor, the same building where they'd first met. The irony wasn't lost on Sarah. She sat in the waiting area outside while James went in alone. Through the glass walls, she could see 12 faces, stern, suited, judging. His father sat at the head of the table. Richard Callahan, silver-haired, granite-faced, the man who'd built an empire and expected his son to maintain it. Sarah couldn't hear the words, but she watched James stand, present something on the screen, gesture with conviction. She watched the board members' faces shift, skeptical to surprised to thoughtful. She watched Richard's expression remain unreadable. 45 minutes passed like 45 hours. Finally, the door opened. James emerged, his face exhausted but not defeated. "Well?" Sarah stood. "I'm still CEO." He ran a hand through his hair. "Barely. I have 6 months to stabilize the stock, find new merger opportunities, and prove I didn't just blow up the company for a personal drama. And if you can't, then I'm out." He looked at her. "But I negotiated something else too." "What?" "Transparency. I told them the truth, that I was in a merger marriage, that I was miserable, that I made a choice to be honest instead of living a lie. And I told them that if Callahan Industries is going to represent innovation and integrity, it has to start with me." Sarah felt her throat tighten. How'd they take it? Mixed, but 3 board members came up after and thanked me. Said they'd been in similar situations, married the wrong person for the right reasons. He smiled sadly. "Turns out I'm not the only one who's been pretending. What about Victoria's family? Settling? The Ashfords don't want a public trial any more than we do. We'll pay a termination fee, they'll keep their dignity, everyone moves on." He paused. "Victoria actually called me this morning." Sarah's stomach clenched. "And?" "She said..." James's voice caught. "She said thank you." "For what?" "For being honest. She said she's been performing her whole life, and watching me choose truth over convenience made her realize she could too." He looked down. "She's taking a year off, going to Europe, figuring out who she is without her parents' expectations." Sarah felt something unexpected, sympathy. Good for her. "Yeah." James took her hand. "She also said to tell you she's sorry. For the threats, the cruelty. She said fear made her mean. It makes us all mean sometimes." They stood there in the hallway, the city sprawling below them, their future uncertain but finally their own. "My mother wants to meet you," James said. "Tonight. Family dinner." Sarah's eyes widened. "Tonight? She's terrifying but fair. And she specifically said to tell you she doesn't judge people by their tax bracket." He smiled. "Her words." What if she hates me? She won't. He pulled her close. But even if she did, it wouldn't change anything. You're it for me, Sarah. The board, my family, the press, they can accept it or not. But I'm done living for other people's approval. Sarah kissed him, soft and certain. Then let's go meet your mother. Catherine Callahan's home was in Greenwich, elegant but warm, filled with books and art and photos of James as a child, grinning gap-toothed at the camera. She answered the door herself. No staff, no pretense. 65, blonde hair going silver, wearing slacks and a cashmere sweater. Beautiful in the way that comes from strength, not maintenance. Sarah, she extended her hand. I'm Catherine. Mrs. Callahan. Sarah shook it, nervous. Thank you for having me. Please, Catherine. She stepped aside. Come in. I made pot roast. James's father claims to hate it, but he'll eat 3 servings. Inside, Richard Callahan stood by the fireplace, intimidating in person, all sharp angles and assessing eyes. Dad, James said carefully, this is Sarah. Richard studied her for a long moment, then extended his hand. You've caused quite a stir, Ms. Winters. I'm aware, sir. You know what I think? Sarah braced herself. No, sir. I think anyone who can make my son stand up in a room full of sharks and fight for something is worth meeting. A ghost of a smile. Welcome to the family, such as it is. Dinner was surreal. They talked about everything. The company, the scandal, Sarah's background, her mother's illness. Catherine was warm. Richard was measured, and slowly, gradually, Sarah felt the knots in her chest begin to loosen. Over dessert, Catherine leaned forward. Sarah, I need to ask you something. Of course. Do you know what you're signing up for? The scrutiny, the pressure, the constant judgment. Dating a Callahan is not a fairy tale, dear, it's work. Sarah glanced at James, then back. Mrs. Callahan, Catherine, 6 months ago, I was planning a wedding that broke my heart every single day. I watched the man I loved prepare to marry someone else, and I stayed because I thought it was the right thing, the professional thing. She paused. I'm done choosing what looks right over what feels true. Whatever comes with loving James, I'll handle it. Catherine's eyes glistened. Good answer. Later, as they stood to leave, Richard pulled James aside. Sarah watched them talk by the fireplace. Father and son, decades of expectations between them. She couldn't hear the words, but she saw Richard's hand on James's shoulder, saw James nod, something releasing in his posture. When they left, James was quiet in the car. What did he say? Sarah asked. James stared at the road, his voice thick. He said he was proud of me. That's good, isn't it? He's never said that before, not once. James blinked rapidly. He said I did what he never had the courage to do. That he married my mother for love, but then spent 40 years letting the company consume everything. He said, his voice broke. He said don't make his mistakes. Sarah reached for his hand. They drove home in comfortable silence, the city lights blurring past, a future unfolding that neither of them could predict, but they'd face it together. 3 months later, Sarah stood in her new apartment. Not Queens, but not a mansion either. Brooklyn, exposed brick, a view of the bridge. A kitchen where she made coffee every morning while James read the news, his feet bare, his hair messy, gloriously ordinary. Her mother was in remission. The company's stock had stabilized. The press had moved on to other scandals. and Sarah had started her own business, not wedding planning anymore, but relationship coaching, helping couples figure out if they were building a life or just performing one. Her first client was Victoria Ashford. They met once a month, talking about identity and expectations and what it meant to choose yourself. It was strange. It was healing. It was proof that sometimes breaking everything is how you rebuild something real. 1 year after the rehearsal dinner that changed everything, James had a question, and this time there was no doubt, only love. The rain came soft that evening, turning the city into watercolor. Sarah stood at the window of their apartment, watching droplets race down the glass, listening to the quiet rhythm of James moving through the kitchen behind her, the clink of plates, the hum of the refrigerator, the small domestic symphony of a life they'd built from scratch. "Come here," he called. She turned. The kitchen table was set with candles, wine, takeout containers from the Thai place on the corner, their Thursday night ritual. Nothing fancy, just them. But something felt different. James stood beside the table, his hands in his pockets, wearing jeans and the faded Columbia sweatshirt she'd bought him because his entire wardrobe was suits and button-downs. He looked nervous. "What's wrong?" Sarah asked, moving closer. "Nothing's wrong." He pulled out her chair. "Sit." She did, watching him with growing curiosity. He sat across from her, poured wine, then just stared at his glass. "James, I'm trying to figure out how to say this." Her heart stuttered. "You're scaring me. Don't be scared." He looked up, his eyes soft. "A year ago today, I stood in that restaurant and told a room full of people I loved you. Best decision I ever made. Also, the most terrifying." Sarah's throat tightened. "I remember. We lost things that night. Money, relationships, certainty." He reached across the table for her hand. "But we gained something more important. Truth, freedom, each other." "Where is this going?" James smiled, nervous and genuine. "I've been thinking about what we built this year. Not just the life, the apartment, the routines, the stupid arguments about whose turn it is to buy milk, but the foundation, the trust." He stood, moving around the table, and dropped to one knee. Sarah's breath stopped. "I don't have a ring yet," James said, his voice shaking slightly. "Because I wanted to ask you first how you'd want to do this. Big? Small? Courthouse? Beach? I don't care about the details, Sarah. I just care about the promise." Tears blurred her vision. "James, I'm not the same man I was a year ago. You changed me, made me braver, more honest, more human." His eyes glistened. "I don't want to plan a wedding for other people's approval. I want to marry my best friend in whatever way feels true to us, so..." He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket, opened it. Inside was a simple gold band, elegant, understated, perfect. "Sarah Winters, will you marry me? Not for a merger or a headline or a perfect photograph, just because I love you, just because I can't imagine my life without you in it." Sarah slid off her chair, kneeling in front of him, cupping his face in her hands. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, yes, yes." He kissed her, deep and certain, and tasting like rain and relief. When they broke apart, both crying and laughing, he slipped the ring on her finger. It fit perfectly. "I love you," she said against his lips. "I love you too." He rested his forehead against hers. "So, how do you want to do this?" What kind of wedding does the woman who plans everyone else's dreams want for herself? Sarah pulled back, thinking. A year ago, she would have said something big, impressive, the kind that made statements. But now, small, she said finally. Just family, maybe the park or the courthouse, somewhere that matters to us, not the cameras. James grinned. My mother will be devastated. Your mother will understand. What about your mum? Sarah's smile widened. She'll cry. Happy tears. She's been asking when you're going to make an honest woman of me for 6 months. Then let's tell her. James stood, pulling Sarah to her feet. Tonight, let's drive to the hospital right now and... She's home now. Remember, remission. His face lit up. Right. God. That's still the best word. They called her mother from the couch, pressed together, the phone on speaker. Baby? Her mother's voice was warm, curious. It's late. Everything okay? Better than okay, Mom. Sarah looked at James, her heart full. We're engaged. The scream of joy was so loud they had to pull the phone away from their ears. Oh my God, when, how, tell me everything. They spent an hour recounting it. The rain, the Thai food, the simple ring, the perfect moment. When they finally hung up, Sarah's cheeks hurt from smiling. Your turn, she said to James. Call your parents. He did. Catherine answered, put them on speaker immediately. James? Sarah? What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, Mum. We just... He looked at Sarah, squeezing her hand. We're getting married. Silence. Then Catherine's delighted laugh. Well, thank God. I've been waiting for you to ask her for 3 months. Richard, our son finally proposed. Richard's voice rumbled in the background. About time. Tell Sarah welcome to the family, officially. They talked logistics, small ceremony, immediate family only, maybe next month. Next month? Catherine sounded scandalized. James, that's... Perfect, James interrupted gently. Mom, we don't need 6 months of planning. We just need the people we love and a promise. That's it. Another pause. Then softer. You're right. You're absolutely right. I'll call my sister. You call Sarah's family. We'll make it beautiful. When they hung up, the apartment was quiet again, except for the rain and their breathing. James pulled Sarah into his lap on the couch. No regrets? Not one. She traced his jawline. You? Only that I didn't do this sooner. They sat like that for a long time, wrapped in each other, the city glowing beyond their windows. Hey, Sarah said eventually. Remember that first meeting in your office, when you asked me if I loved Victoria? And you said respect was more important than love. James winced. God, I was an idiot. No. She kissed his temple. You were just scared. We both were. Scared of wanting something that didn't make sense on paper. And now? Sarah pulled back to look at him fully. Now I know that the best things in life don't make sense. They just feel right. Like us. Like us. They married on a Tuesday in Central Park, October. The trees were burning gold and crimson, the air crisp with the promise of winter. 20 people total. James's parents, Sarah's mother, radiant and healthy, a few close friends, Eleanor Ashford, who'd become an unexpected ally, even Victoria, who'd flown in from Paris with a new lightness in her eyes and a sculptor boyfriend who made her laugh. No media, no photographers. Just a quiet clearing near Bow Bridge. the city humming around them like a blessing. Sarah wore a simple cream dress she'd found in a vintage shop in Brooklyn. James wore a navy suit, no tie, wildflowers pinned to his lapel that Sarah had picked that morning from a bodega. The officiant was a friend from law school who cried through the entire ceremony. There was no wedding planner. Sarah stood under the trees, holding James's hands, and wrote her own vows. "A year and a half ago you walked into my life planning to marry someone else," she began, her voice steady despite the tears. "You were trapped in a life that looked perfect, but felt empty. And somehow, in the middle of the most impossible situation, we found each other." James's eyes glistened. "You taught me that love isn't about timing or logic or what makes sense. It's about choosing truth, even when it costs everything. It's about being brave enough to say, 'This isn't right,' and you are." Her voice cracked. "So today I choose you, not because it's easy or convenient or what anyone expects, but because loving you is the most honest thing I've ever done." James exhaled shakily, squeezing her hands. Then he spoke. "Sarah, you saved my life." His voice was raw. Not dramatically, not with some grand gesture, but quietly, by asking the right questions, by seeing through every wall I'd built, by making me remember what it felt like to be real. He paused, gathering himself. "I spent years building an empire, but forgetting to build a life. You reminded me which one mattered. So I promise you, not a perfect marriage, because we're human, but an honest one, a brave one, a life where we choose each other every single day." They exchanged rings, matching gold bands, simple and eternal. "I now pronounce you husband and wife." James pulled Sarah close, kissing her as their family cheered, leaves swirling around them like confetti, the city their witness. When they broke apart, both laughing and crying, Sarah looked around at the faces watching, people who'd supported them through scandal and judgment and the hard work of rebuilding. This was family, not blood or obligation, but choice. The reception was held at a small Italian restaurant in the West Village, the kind with checkered tablecloths and Chianti bottles covered in wax. They ate and danced and toasted to second chances. Catherine pulled Sarah aside during dessert. "Thank you." "For what?" "For giving me my son back." Catherine's eyes were bright. "The real one. The one who laughs at terrible jokes and forgets to check his phone and looks at you like you hung the moon." Sarah hugged her. "Thank you for raising him." Later, as the party wound down, Sarah found Victoria on the restaurant's back patio smoking a cigarette. "I didn't know you smoked," Sarah said. Victoria laughed. "I don't. Picked it up in Paris, trying to figure out who I am without rules." She exhaled slowly. "Congratulations, by the way. The ceremony was beautiful. Thank you for coming." "I almost didn't." Victoria stubbed out the cigarette. "Wasn't sure I could handle it, but then I realized you did me a favor." "How so?" "You showed me what I was settling for, a life that looked right but felt hollow." Victoria smiled, genuine this time. "I'm dating someone now, a sculptor. He's broke and messy and completely inappropriate for an Ashford. My parents are horrified." Sarah grinned. "Sounds perfect." "It is." Victoria looked at her carefully. "I'm sorry, Sarah, for how I treated you. The threats, the cruelty. I was terrified of losing control, and I took it out on you." "I understand." "Do you forgive me?" Sarah considered. "I'm working on it, but I think we're getting there." Victoria nodded, accepting that. "Good. That's fair." They stood in comfortable silence, Two women who'd been enemies, then strangers, now something like friends. "For what it's worth," Victoria said quietly, "I'm glad he chose you. James deserves to be happy. We both do." "Yeah," Sarah agreed. "We do." At midnight, James and Sarah left the restaurant hand in hand, walking through the city that had witnessed their entire story. Past the building where they'd first met. Past the penthouse where he'd first confessed he couldn't stop thinking about her. Past the restaurant where everything had shattered and rebuilt itself into something true. They ended up on the Brooklyn Bridge, the city glittering around them like 1,000 promises. "Mrs. Callahan," James said, testing out the name. Sarah smiled. "I'm keeping Winters professionally, but I like the way you say that." "Good, because I plan to say it approximately 1,000,000 more times." He pulled her close, the lights reflecting in his eyes. "Are you happy?" She thought about it. The year of scandal and rebuilding, the hard conversations and harder choices, the life they'd built from honesty instead of obligation. "Yes," she said simply, "I really am." "Me too." He kissed her forehead. "Thank you for jumping off the cliff with me. Thank you for making it worth the fall." They stood there as the city breathed around them, imperfect, chaotic, alive, and for the first time in both their lives, exactly where they belonged. If this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes that love is worth fighting for, even when the world says it's impossible. Because sometimes, the greatest love stories aren't the ones that make sense. They're the ones that make us brave. Some riches can't be bought. They're earned by choosing truth over comfort, love over convenience, and courage over fear. Would you have jumped? Tell me in the comments below.